During a murder trial, a German Shepherd K9 locked eyes on a tree outside the courtroom and refused to move. Days later, she led her handler back and dug up a buried phone that proved the accused boy was innocent. But what they found next revealed a cover-up deeper than anyone expected, and the only one who ever knew was the dog. The courtroom didn't breathe. It held its air the way a lake holds silence after a body sinks to the bottom, thick, pressured, waiting. Reporters lined the left-hand gallery with tablets out and mics off, their thumbs hovering, not typing. On the right, a row of solemn, well-dressed people, some crying, some too angry to blink. In the front, Darius Cole, 17, black, close-cropped hair, stiff in an oversized gray button-down, shoulders locked so tight he didn't seem to exhale for minutes at a time. The trial had drawn attention from 3 counties, not because of what had happened, another violent death in another small town, but because of who had died. Eli Beckman, the golden boy son of a local real estate tycoon, stabbed in the ribs in a parking garage after a late-night party. The official story: robbery gone wrong. Surveillance footage. An anonymous tip. A folding knife found in a dumpster. A suspect with no alibi and no family name to shield him. The judge's voice had already become background hum. The prosecutor, a man in an immaculate navy suit and a voice built for closing statements, had painted Darius as a young man on the edge. A smiling powder keg, he called him. And then the back doors opened. Officer Elise Rayner stepped in with her K9 partner Tora beside her. Elise, 32, white, 5'9", blonde hair pulled into a tight, no-nonsense ponytail, wore the navy blue tactical uniform of courtroom security, with badge ID on one shoulder and her pistol holstered tight on her right hip. Her movements were precise, every step taken like she knew she was being watched. Tora, her German Shepherd, was a model of discipline. 7 years old, black saddle over rich tan fur, amber eyes always scanning, always alert. She had performed scent detection at high-risk crime scenes, swept bomb threats in schools, and de-escalated 2 standoffs in the field. Elise had trusted her with her life, twice, which is why what happened next chilled her to the bone. The second they passed through the wooden archway into the courtroom proper, Tora stopped cold. No sound, no bark, no sniffing. She didn't look at the people, didn't check for weapons, didn't even acknowledge the judge. Her body turned sideways, and she locked her stare on the large window behind the jury box, where twisted branches of an old oak tree stretched just into view. Elise didn't see it at first. She was focused on clearing the aisle, staying out of camera range. But she felt it. The leash had tension, tight, unmoving. She looked down. "Tora," she said softly. "Heel." Nothing. The dog's ears were forward, eyes wide, neck stiff, tail straight. Not raised, not lowered. Not aggression, not anxiety. Focus. The kind of focus she only ever showed when tracking, when she'd caught a fresh scent of blood or trauma. Elise gave a light tug. "Tora, come on." The dog didn't move. She just kept staring at the tree. The judge raised his eyes. "Officer?" "I'm sorry, Your Honor, Elise paused. She tried again, stepping closer to her partner. "Tora, leave it." Still nothing. The dog was locked into something Elise couldn't see. Her breathing had slowed, her mouth closed. She wasn't scanning. She wasn't distracted. She was watching. And Elise knew that stare. It meant, "There's something here, and you're not listening." A murmur passed through the gallery. One of the jurors leaned slightly forward. Darius finally turned his head, watching the dog with narrowed eyes. He didn't speak, but something passed across his face, like recognition. The bailiff stepped forward, whispering, "You need to remove the dog." Elise forced a tight smile and nodded. "Yes, sir." But her hands were suddenly slick. She stepped in front of Tora to break the line of sight. The dog's eyes flicked up to her handler just once, then snapped back toward the tree. Elise crouched, took the dog's collar in both hands, and turned her away physically. Only then did Tora move. No growl, no protest. But Elise could feel it, the tension under her fingers, the resistance in her gait. Whatever had pulled her to that window, it wasn't over. As they exited the courtroom, Elise heard the judge's voice, "Let's proceed." But for her, nothing was proceeding. Her heart was racing. She had seen that posture once before, during a sweep of a collapsed apartment, when Tora found a body buried under drywall 3 hours after the search was called off, and she was showing that same behavior again, toward a tree outside a courtroom, during a murder trial. Elise knew dogs didn't get hunches. They got truth. And now she had a decision to make. Ignore it like she was supposed to, or follow her partner, off-leash. The courthouse was dark now, save for a few sodium lights buzzing over the empty parking lot. Elise sat in her cruiser with the engine off, keys in her lap, staring straight ahead at the building's outline as it loomed against the midnight sky. Her badge was still clipped to her vest, though her shift had ended 3 hours ago. She hadn't gone home. Tora sat beside her in the passenger seat, calm, upright, and still watching the same direction she had back in court. The old oak tree. Elise exhaled through her nose, popped the door open, and stepped out into the night air. She didn't leash Tora. She didn't have to. The bond between them was years deep, built not on treats or training but on fire alarms, field calls, nights behind ballistic shields. They moved like one unit now, one soul. "Let's go," she said. Tora was already on her feet. They crossed the lot in silence. The courthouse stood quiet, dignified, almost smug in its stone facade. But the moment they passed the edge of the building, that changed. The tree, twisted, older than the pavement around it, came into view. It had been planted decades ago when the courthouse was built. People thought of it as a landmark. Tora didn't see a landmark. She saw a message. Her body changed the second she saw it again. Shoulders low, tail stiff, head locked forward. Not aggression. Determination. She advanced slowly, ears rotating in tight arcs, nose twitching, not left and right, but down. Then she stopped, right at the base of the trunk. Elise reached her side, knelt slowly. The ground there was uneven, one shallow swell of earth maybe no more than 3 inches high. Nothing dramatic. But the way Tora sat down beside it, composed, alert, as if saying, "Look here," made her stomach flip. "You found something," Elise whispered. Tora looked at her. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't training. It was a choice. Elise reached into the patrol bag strapped over her back, pulled out a foldable spade and a pair of nitrile gloves. She slipped them on in silence. The wind stirred a few dry leaves. Tora didn't move. She watched Elise the whole time, like she was supervising the process. 3 inches down, the dirt changed color. 5 inches in, her spade hit something soft. She scooped carefully. More dirt. Then leather, a wallet. Worn, water-damaged, half-rotted. She brushed the edges clean, the mud clinging like it didn't want to let go. The leather cracked as she opened it. Inside, a half-dissolved driver's license and a business card. Blood-stained, curled with moisture. The name jumped out immediately. Travis Beckman. Elise froze. Beckman was the prosecution's key witness, the same man who told the jury, under oath, that he saw Darius Cole fleeing the scene with a knife, that he followed him, that he heard Eli Beckman scream, that he chased him down an alley. But this wallet had been buried at the courthouse, beneath the very tree Tora stared at for hours. And if Beckman had never been near the scene until the moment of the crime, why was his wallet buried near the courthouse? Why did Tora recognize the scent immediately? Elise snapped photos, sealed the wallet in a forensic bag from her trunk, marked the coordinates in her phone. Then she turned to Tora and stared at her partner like she'd never fully seen her before. "You're not reacting to the courtroom," she murmured. "You're reacting to what's outside of it. And you're not trying to protect me from something, you're trying to lead me into it." Elise rose to her feet, gripping the wallet like it might explode. Tora stood too, head tilted slightly. And in that moment, Elise understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't about one bad man doing one bad thing. This was evidence someone buried and assumed no one would ever think to dig. No one except a dog that never forgot a scent. No one except a partner who never stopped working, even when no one asked her to. The evidence locker was colder than usual. Elise stood inside the fluorescent-lit basement room with the wallet sealed in a clear forensic bag, both hands gloved, her body stiff. She handed it to the duty tech with a signed chain of custody form and watched carefully as he logged it, labeling, scanning, sealing it into a marked bin for priority processing. Case number, member 04127C. Item description, recovered personal ID, probable blood evidence, timestamp, 10:36 p.m. Everything by the book. And yet, something in her gut was already twisting. She left the locker, went straight to her cruiser, and took Tora home. The dog had finally relaxed, briefly curling up by the front door, not at the usual place near the window, but pressed against the entrance like she was still guarding it. Elise couldn't sleep. She stayed up rereading her own notes, replaying the trial footage on her laptop. Travis Beckman's testimony came on screen, confident, polished, unshakable. He said he saw Darius run. He said he heard the scream. He said he gave chase. But if his wallet had been buried by the courthouse for weeks, he had to have been there before the crime. Or during something else entirely. She made a plan. First thing in the morning, go to forensics, get the lab report started, and submit a formal memo for the judge. She arrived at the precinct by 7:02 a.m. The evidence log was empty. Elise blinked at the screen, refreshed it. No item under number 4127C, no mention of a wallet, no Travis Beckman. She walked, fast, to the locker room. The same duty tech was on shift, nursing cheap coffee and half a breakfast burrito. He gave her a blank look when she asked. "I didn't log anything for that case," he said. "You sure you submitted it here?" "I was standing right there," she snapped. "You watched me sign the form." He shrugged. "Not in the system." Elise turned, marched to her captain's office. The door was closed, blinds tilted. She knocked once, twice. "Captain." The door opened just a sliver. Captain Roy Medlin, mid-50s, white graying temples, dark blue uniform, crisp as always, met her eyes with his usual nonchalance. "Officer Rayner. I logged a piece of evidence last night connected to the Cole case. It's not in the database." Medlin didn't blink. "I reviewed your report. There was no verified connection, no probable cause linking it to the current trial. We've marked it as a field anomaly." Her jaw tightened. "You're suppressing it." "No," he said quietly. "I'm prioritizing the integrity of an ongoing case. You want to blow up a murder trial based on what your dog found in the dirt? You don't even have a timestamp on when it was buried. It had blood on it. It belonged to the prosecution's lead witness. And he's already testified under oath, Medlin said. Don't push this, Elise. Let it go. She stood there, staring into the crack of the door. The quiet message in his tone was louder than the words. Back off. She walked away slowly. Not in defeat, in calculation. That night, she reviewed the body cam footage from her return to the tree. File not found. She checked again. Then deeper. Manual access into raw data. Nothing. She went to her backup drive. Nothing saved. Everything from the last 12 hours, gone. But what they didn't know was that Elise, like most handlers, ran a second camera clipped inside her vest for training review. And that footage was safe. Backed up. Untouched. It showed Tora digging. It showed the wallet. It showed her pulling out Beckman's bloody card under timestamp and GPS-locked video. And it showed one more thing. Tora never barked, never growled. She simply sat beside the hole after the find, posture tall, ears up, like a witness waiting to be sworn in. The next morning, Elise didn't report to the precinct. She sat on the floor of her living room in sweatpants and a t-shirt, a mug of cold coffee on the table, and her uniform still hanging untouched in the hallway. The badge lay next to her boot. Tora rested nearby, alert but calm, ears occasionally rotating at distant sounds, eyes never quite shutting. Even in rest, the dog didn't relax. Neither did Elise. She had spent most of the night watching the backup footage, again and again, frame by frame. Tora digging. The wallet in Elise's hands. The bloodstain on the card, the coordinates stamped in the corner of the screen. Then, the stillness. The way Tora just sat beside the hole, like she was waiting for someone to acknowledge it. No barking. No excitement. Just the truth, laid bare, and the quiet fury of being ignored. Elise opened her laptop again and pulled up everything she had on Travis Beckman. He had no criminal record, but Elise remembered something. Fuzzy. Not an incident. A report. She started combing through old case notes, keywords, minor complaints. And then she found it. A theft ring investigation from 8 months ago. Property crimes, credit card skimming, electronic forgery. Beckman's name showed up as a witness in a statement taken by another officer. But Elise had been on that call too, assisting with crowd control. She dug through her archived training videos hoping the secondary cam might have caught something. And there it was. A single 10-second clip where Eli Beckman, the victim in Darius's case, was seen on camera, screaming in Travis Beckman's face in the background of a chaotic scene. There was no audio, but the aggression was clear. Eli shoving Travis against a car, Travis pointing a finger in return. No police report, no mention of conflict, just one shaky clip the system had never flagged. Elise sat back, her chest tight. So they knew each other, and they'd had a falling out, violent even. But in court, Travis swore under oath he'd never met Eli Beckman before the night of the murder. A direct lie, and the prosecution let it slide. Elise stood, crossed the room to where her old uniform bag lay in the corner closet. She hadn't touched it in months. When she opened it, Tora immediately stood up and followed. Elise pulled out the backup hard drive. Inside, there was a second folder. Auto-saved footage from her vest cam, synced with timestamps. She had completely forgotten it even existed. Inside the folder was a full 30-minute unedited clip, her return to the courthouse. The dig, the find, her commentary, and a perfect, unbroken view of the bloody wallet from 3 angles as she logged it. It was all still there. She transferred the file to a private server, created 2 secure backups, labeled the folder, treewitness.r1, do not erase. When she turned, Tora was standing behind her, calm, watchful. Elise kneeled and placed her hand on the dog's shoulder. "You remembered what I didn't," she whispered. Tora leaned in, her head against Elise's chest for a moment. Quiet, steady, no wag, no noise, because she already knew what came next. They weren't working inside the system anymore. They were outside of it, and that meant they had to keep moving. Elise didn't park near the courthouse this time. She left her car 3 blocks away in an unlit church lot and walked the rest of the distance under a low, cloud-covered sky. Her hood was up, shoulders hunched, hands in her jacket pockets. She wasn't in uniform, wasn't on duty, and didn't want to be seen. She carried no badge, no radio. Just a folding spade, a flashlight, and a dog who refused to let this go. Tora walked beside her without a sound. No leash, no commands, no hesitation. The dog's pace was firm, steady, not sniffing the air or looking for distractions. Her head was low, her stride purposeful. She knew exactly where they were going. The courthouse sat like a monument to certainty, its stone pillars catching the distant amber of streetlights. But it wasn't the building Elise looked at. It was the tree. The old live oak, gnarled and wide-shouldered, rising behind the eastern side of the building like a forgotten witness. Its roots stretched out like claws under the dirt, too large to cage. The same tree Tora had stared at for hours in court, eyes unblinking. And Elise saw it instantly. Something was wrong. The spot where she and Tora had dug 3 nights earlier. It had been touched. Not deeply, but enough. The dirt had been tamped down. The grass relaid over the surface. Not by groundskeepers. Someone trying to erase their footsteps. Tora froze. She didn't circle. Didn't sniff. She stopped, just 3 feet to the left of the original dig site, and lowered her body into a silent, watchful sight. Head tilted slightly, ears forward, not moving, not breathing heavy. This wasn't alert posture. This was confirmation. She remembered she had come back to the same spot. And this time, she was even more precise. Elise dropped to one knee and pulled the flashlight from her jacket. She clicked it on and scanned the soil. There was a faint patch of darker dirt near a curl of bark. The roots here split at an angle, creating a small hollow. She began to dig. Slow, gentle. 2 inches, then 4. She peeled back a layer of dead leaves and loam. The soil came up easy, too easy. Then the spade hit something hard, plastic. Elise paused, dug more carefully. What emerged was a black, scratched, shock-resistant smartphone case. Thick rubber corners, no stickers, no name. She pried it loose and held it up to the light. Tora stood now, leaning in, nostrils flaring. Elise pocketed it. Back at home, she worked in near darkness, lit only by the screen of her laptop and the flashlight laid sideways across the desk. The phone was old, but intact, no SIM. But when she connected it to her laptop, it lit up. She copied everything, ran low-level recovery, and watched the pieces fall into place like rusted bolts snapping loose under pressure. The phone belonged to Darius Cole. It had geolocation history, tracked by its internal gyroscope. It had texts, over a dozen messages time-stamped after the time prosecutors claimed Darius had already committed the murder. Jokes with his cousin. Food truck pings. A blurry selfie with 2 friends standing beside a neon taco stand 6 blocks away from the crime scene. There were voice memos, too. One of them, "Yo, I'm still waiting on Eli. Dude said he was going to drop off that charger like 30 minutes ago." Elise froze. He wasn't meeting Eli to rob him. He was meeting him like a friend. Waiting. The entire timeline unraveled in front of her eyes. The GPS logs placed him far away from the alley. Traffic cams confirmed the food truck was there. Open, serving customers. Elise checked timestamps. Double-checked, triple-checked. and none of this had been submitted into evidence. None of it had even been mentioned, because the phone had been missing, because someone had taken it and buried it under a tree behind the courthouse. Elise leaned back in her chair, hands trembling. There was only one reason you bury exculpatory evidence behind a courtroom. You don't want it found. And whoever did this had access, not just to evidence rooms but to the timeline itself. They'd chosen what to present, what to omit, and what to make disappear. Except one thing they couldn't erase: Tora. The dog had remembered the scent, had brought Elise back not once but twice, had refused to be redirected, reprogrammed, or shut down. And now the very proof no one wanted in the courtroom had surfaced, thanks to the one witness who couldn't be cross-examined or corrupted. Elise turned to look at Tora, who sat quietly at the base of the couch, eyes locked on her, head tilted. "You remembered everything," she whispered. "You knew where they put it. And more importantly, you knew what they were afraid of." Elise didn't sleep the night after finding Darius's phone. She couldn't. She backed up the files to 3 separate locations, 1 physical, 2 encrypted cloud vaults. She exported GPS pings, traffic cam matches, and video overlays. She even printed hard copies. She didn't know if anyone would believe her, or worse, if someone would make sure they never got the chance to decide. Because now she wasn't just holding exonerating evidence. She was holding the proof of a cover-up, and the only reason any of it existed was her dog. Tora lay curled beside the front door, body quiet, eyes alert. She hadn't touched her food. She hadn't left Elise's side since the second dig. It was as if she knew everything had changed and wasn't over. At 3:42 a.m., Elise opened a secure browser and logged into a private press tip line used by whistleblowers and law enforcement. She uploaded a copy of her VestCam video, the full one, showing the dig, the recovery, the phone, the contents. She included a brief typed message: evidence of prosecutorial misconduct, false testimony, buried phone tied to accused, case therefore 127C, time-stamped, GPS verified, witness, K9 unit. She didn't sign it. She didn't have to. By 7 a.m., the clip was already circulating on social media. By 9, it was on national headlines. Police, K9 finds buried phone that could overturn murder conviction. Tree dog video goes viral. Is the wrong man on trial? By noon, protesters had gathered on the courthouse steps. Signs, chants, even children holding up drawings of German shepherds with the words, "Let her testify." Elise didn't leave the house. Her phone was blowing up, unknown numbers, reporters, calls from captains she hadn't spoken to in weeks. At 1:17 p.m., her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole. Captain Medlin. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled up the live stream of the courtroom. Judge Rayland, silver-haired and visibly irritated, had just called a recess. The defense team was presenting a motion to suspend proceedings due to new evidence under public scrutiny. The prosecution tried to argue chain of custody violations, but the footage had already reached over 3.4 million views. It was too late. The court had lost control of the narrative. And at the center of it all wasn't just Elise, it was Tora. Someone had snapped a still from the footage, a shot of Tora sitting beside the hole she had dug, dirt on her paws, eyes locked forward, noble and unflinching. That image became a symbol. By evening, it was being printed on posters, memes, protest shirts. She never forgot. Let the dog speak. Truth has a nose. Tora wasn't just a K9 anymore. She was the witness no one expected, and the one no one could silence. By the following morning, Calverton wasn't the same town anymore. The courthouse was barricaded by metal fencing and controlled access points. State troopers had replaced the local bailiffs at the door. News vans lined the street like dominoes. A podium had been hastily placed on the front steps, flanked by microphones wrapped in foam windshields from every major media outlet. CNN, local stations, even international crews. But the courtroom remained quiet. The trial was frozen. The judge had declared an emergency evidentiary review behind closed doors, citing the extraordinary public reaction to the leaked footage. Elise watched from home, sitting on her floor again, surrounded by printed documents, open hard drives, her laptop, and Tora, still lying at the door like a sentinel. Then the call came, blocked number. She picked up. "Elise Rayner?" the voice asked. Calm, clipped male. "You've been officially suspended, effective immediately. An internal investigation is underway." Click. No apology. No reason. Just exile. She didn't argue. She didn't panic. She expected it. But what she didn't expect came 2 hours later. Her doorbell rang. Again. This time, it wasn't her captain. It was Travis Beckman's landlord. A short, nervous woman in her 50s, holding an envelope with a shaky hand and eyes filled with something between panic and guilt. "He left this for you," she said. "Said if he didn't come back by morning." Inside the envelope, a burner phone and a typed note. "I didn't want to lie. I was told they'd drop charges against me if I just said what they wrote. They already knew where Darius was. They said the phone would be destroyed. I didn't bury it. I swear to God, I didn't bury it." Elise stared at the words. Her hands trembled. Travis was gone. Fled. No forwarding address, no known car, and no tracking trail. Because someone higher than him, much higher, had cleaned up. And now they were cleaning up again. Across town, Elise's name was being erased from department rosters. Access revoked, badge invalidated. Her last 10 years of service reduced to an internal review tag in the system. Unstable, under investigation. But outside her door, the public was writing a different file. They were naming a dog a hero. At the edge of the courthouse lawn, a protester spray-painted, "This dog saved a life. You just buried it." A children's art class submitted drawings of Tora to the local paper. A viral post showed a side-by-side image of Beckman on the stand and Tora at the tree. The caption read, "One lied, one didn't need to speak." And something in the system cracked. The district attorney's office issued a public statement that evening. "In light of new information, we are cooperating fully with the court in a re-examination of certain evidentiary components. We thank our K-9 units for their continued service." Elise laughed when she read it, not from joy, but from disbelief. They hadn't even said her name. They'd credited K-9 units, plural, as if it had been a whole team, as if this had been protocol. But there was only one dog, only one partner who refused to walk away from that tree, only one who dug when no one asked, who remembered what no one else saw, who sat still until the truth surfaced, Tora. That night, Elise gave her steak, real, pan-seared, seasoned like a damn human would eat it. She didn't cry, but when Tora laid her head on Elise's lap afterward, full and calm for the first time in weeks, Elise ran her hand over the dog's ear and whispered, "You did more than any of them." Pause. "You made them look." Outside, the wind knocked over a protest sign that had been leaned against the fence. In thick red paint, it read, "Truth dies when the dog is muzzled." But now, Tora wasn't muzzled, she was seen, and someone out there, who'd buried more than just a phone, was starting to sweat. Because the dog wasn't done. Not yet. The courthouse was full again. But this time it was quiet, not tense, not angry, just still. like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for someone else to speak first. No protesters today. No cameras inside. Just the families. The lawyers, and at the center, Darius Cole, now in a dark blue suit that didn't quite fit his frame, sitting straighter than he had in weeks. He had stopped shaking. Behind him, Elise sat without uniform, in a plain black blazer, hands folded in her lap. On the floor beside her, Tora, also without a vest, but alert. She wasn't there as a working dog. She was there as a witness, and everyone knew it. Judge Rayland entered from chambers. The room stood. The jury had already been dismissed. The DA's office had quietly dropped the case the night before. But this hearing, the final motion hearing, was about something else. Official record, truth, said aloud. The judge cleared his throat. Based on new digital evidence, verified GPS metadata, and direct forensic recovery of critical communication devices, he paused. This court finds the prosecution's timeline irreparably compromised. Darius didn't move. Rayland continued. All charges against Mr. Cole are hereby dismissed. Effective immediately, this court declares him fully exonerated. Silence. Then gasps. Then Darius leaned forward, dropped his head into his hands, and sobbed. His mother, seated 2 rows behind him, cried openly. Elise didn't look at them. She looked down. Tora had laid her head gently across Elise's foot. Not in rest, in closure. After the hearing, people filtered out slowly. A few reporters waited at the curb, unsure if they were allowed to ask anything. Darius didn't stop to talk. He just walked across the hallway and stopped in front of Elise. She stood. For the first time, they faced each other. He didn't say thank you. He didn't have to. He knelt slowly, carefully, and held his hand out to Tora. The dog didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and pressed her head into his chest. Not because she'd been told to. Because she remembered him. He'd been the one she tried to protect from the start. Elise watched in silence. The DA never showed. The captain never called. But as they stepped out onto the courthouse steps, a small group had gathered. Locals, strangers, kids with hand-drawn signs. One read, "She dug up the truth." Another, "Let the dog testify." A final plaque would be placed a week later at the base of that oak tree. Small, simple, unpolished. It read, "In memory of the silence that saved a life. Tora, K9 Unit, 7 years of service. One final testimony."